Business owners, do you believe you have little or no control over whether people pay you or not? Whether your clients, your patients, customers, all of those people, the people you work with in your business, do you believe you have no control over whether they pay you or not? Because I want to help you take that mindset, challenge it, and replace it with this: people pay me when I make it easy, expected, and enforced. So, my name is Andrea Pearson, and welcome to my show. Whether you're a business owner, a creator, or anyone who refuses to settle like me, this show challenges common ways of thinking so that you can achieve success in all areas of life. And I'm doing a series of episodes right now geared to small business owners because I have a heart for business. I love entrepreneurs. I especially love people who work in the trades, but I love pretty much any small business owner. And so my question for you is, how do you get people to pay? And that might be the question that you have for me if you found this episode out in the wild or whatever. But so what I want to do is help you guys understand what it is that you need to do to make sure that you're getting paid. And they're going to be practical actions. And the first one I want to talk about is to set payment terms up front so that people know exactly what to expect. They know what you are, like what you're all about, what your business does, how we operate, when you expect those payments to happen. And if you set those payment terms in a contract or over email, over text, have it in writing somewhere so it's not just a verbal agreement, because again, people go back on verbal agreements all the time, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where that ends up being you. So if you set up your payment terms up front and you make sure they know exactly when you're going to expect payment, they know exactly how you expect payment, whether you have a deposit up front, what the due dates are, what will happen if they don't pay on time, things like that. They need to know ahead of time what you're going to be expecting. And as you open up that dialogue, you're going to be able to understand better whether or not this person is going to pay you or not. And then also, you're going to want to invoice immediately as soon as the work is done. I know a lot of my clients that I've worked with, their least favorite part is getting people to pay, and it's painful to them, and they're like, oh, I don't really want to do it. But guess what, guys? If you did a good job, which most of you will, most business owners do the best of their ability unless they're truly burned out or not doing something they're passionate about or they lack skills, okay? But I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to my listeners and just say, you're doing a good job, and your customers are going to want to thank you, and they want to thank you by paying you. And if you invoice immediately, while they're still happy about things, they're more likely to pay you, and they're more likely to pay you while it's still on their mind, so they have less of a chance to procrastinate. And then make sure that you're also automating reminders so that you're making it easy for them to pay and easy for you, so you're not adding mental burden on yourself. That whole, I've got to send a reminder. If you automate it, you're not going to have to worry about whether or not they're going to get a reminder, because it's just part of your whole system. Okay, going along that line, follow a consistent follow-up cadence. And what I mean by that is you set your automatic reminders to go out on the same day every time with every single client. So you set it up to go out immediately, and then you're going to have one go out 3 days later, one go out 7 days later, and then once every week or every 2 weeks thereafter. Just basically make it so that it's a cadence that is familiar. And you might even want to consider putting that into your contract up front. And for those of you guys who are watching or listening, if you can hear the fan in the background, our AC right now is completely dead. It is over 80 degrees in my office right now, and I am just sweltering. So I'm going to try to edit that sound out, but if you can still hear the fan, I apologize. But now, if you're using a word about setting up a consistent payment schedule, this is something where if you are using QuickBooks and you or something else that sets out that automatic thing, don't have your estimate, so the estimate that you give them up front, don't have that be the invoice. And what I mean by that, or if you don't, let me actually give you a little more information on that. So what I'm saying is, if you have it set up so that your estimate becomes the invoice, then your reminder system is going to be messed up, because people don't always decide day of. So you give them that estimate, and then they sign with you, and then you start having your automatic reminders going out before you've even started the work. And that has actually happened to me before, because people, it's happened more than once. People use their estimates as their invoices. Now you want your estimate to be separate from the invoice. You give them the estimate, and then you create a new invoice that will start going out, having those automatic reminders and having them go out at that schedule that I mentioned earlier, the immediately, and then after day 3, after day 7, etc. So that anyway, so you don't want them to become desensitized basically to the reminders that are going before you've even started the work. And then again, don't rely on just auto reminders. You want to actually, if they're not paying especially, then you want to reach out and be like, okay, so I know my automatic reminders are going out automatically, right? You want to make sure that you're reaching out to them if they haven't paid within a certain time frame, and just check in with them. You can follow the same schedule. So check in on the first day that you notice that they're not paying, and then 3 days later, and then a week later. And then after that, you want it to be on a regular and consistent basis. And hopefully, I know some of you guys are going to have run into this before, where people just aren't paying at all. And there's, a process in place that we can talk about that in a little bit. But another thing that you can do is to require partial or full payments before work begins. And I'm going to say, I don't generally recommend requiring full payments. The vast majority of people are not going to be willing to make a full payment, because you have to recognize that, yes, there's risk on your side, but there's also risk on your client's side. And especially if it's a new client, they're not going to be willing to pay you 100% up front if they don't know that they can trust you to actually do the work, because people get scammed on both sides. They get scammed when they pay you up front, and then you can get scammed if you don't require payment up front. And so I would recommend a percentage, and generally it would be the cost of materials or the cost of the research that you're going to put in. So if you consult people, then you would charge them, a little bit to cover the time that you put in researching. And most consultants don't charge ahead of time. They'll charge after the fact, probably because it's a lower cost on them compared to a contractor who's doing thousands of dollars. If you're a contractor and you're doing thousands of dollars, then having them pay for some of the materials up front, or whatever materials that you have to order ahead of time up front, so that that's not falling on your shoulders. That is a fine way to do it. Okay, so next, use clear consequences. So you're going to, and there's a line between mercy and there's a line between justice. You need justice, and sometimes your clients or patients or customers need grace. So I would say have a grace period. If they don't pay within 2 weeks to 30 days, or even 60 days, probably you're gonna have to go with common sense. 60 days I wouldn't recommend. I would recommend 30 days of no late fees. Or if there's like extenuating circumstances, like a death in the family, like cancer diagnosis, things like that. So be open-minded to hearing, to waiving fees if there's something legit going on, but also recognize that some people don't have their lives together, and I'm not trying to be cruel about that, but some people will emergencies to get out of paying. And so if they're constantly giving you somebody else, these emergencies, then recognize that they might not be being honest with you. They might be having all of those emergencies happening. That is a possibility, but you do deserve to get paid, and you don't deserve to get paid after everybody else who is one of their emergencies that so-and-so needed to get paid first. So if they aren't paying on time, go ahead and look into late fees, how you can apply that to your estimates, your invoices. Pause your work. If they stop paying you, don't continue work for them. Or if it's a system that they have access to, then revoke their access. You might have to brainstorm ways to get them to pay that deal with your specific business. Okay, so this is another thing that I see all the time. You need to remove friction. So give them multiple payment options, not just one. And if you don't accept MasterCard and you only accept Discover, or you only accept one thing or another, then give them multiple ways to pay, and recognize if you only accept one way to pay, then you're reducing the likelihood of people paying you on time. They might pay you eventually. Some people might not pay you at all. So you want to remove friction, reduce friction as much as possible by offering multiple payment options, like accepting checks, which is really risky, accepting cash, Venmo, PayPal. PayPal is, I know it's an iffy thing. Venmo is also iffy. People are starting to scam people through Venmo now, but cash, Wave, like a PayPal invoice system, or Wave invoice system, or MoneyWire, Zelle, there's all sorts of different ways to remove friction. If you have a checkout process, simplify it significantly. And then this is my big one right here. Send a link for payment to phone and email. Some people pay payments faster and easier on their phone when they get it through their phone, like a text message. And some people pay faster and easier when they get it to email, and you don't know if they're checking their email or on their phone or text message on their phone. Some people have their phones linked up to their computers. You don't know which way they're going to receive your information. And so make it easy for them, and have it go to text and email. Don't just text your invoices. Include it to email as well. And then also make sure you have in mind what you want to say to them in your follow-ups, so that you're not like stressing or having anxiety or being anxious about what you will say and won't say. So make sure that your follow-ups are scripted and write it down so that you feel comfortable saying them and you're not feeling awkward or uncomfortable. Okay, then last, make sure you know your escalation path. So how far are you willing to take somebody if they don't pay you? Recognize that there are processes in place for getting paid for, if it's a small amount. We've got small claims courts. You can go into collections. You can also consider writing it off and just being like, you know what, maybe that was some stupid tax, and stupid tax, that's a Dave Ramsey thing. Don't be offended by it. It just basically is like, oh crap, I made a mistake and I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better, and write it off and move on with your life. Collections, there are ways to go through collections. I'm not going to get into that in this episode, just because that's a big topic. And then also small claims. There are rules around small claims. You might want to research what those might be. Recognize though, you might win. You might win in small claims. That does not mean you're going to get your money. And so it might be like, yay, I won. I feel so good. And that's all you're going to get, is that I feel good because I won. But most people are going to, that's a cheap win. What they really want is the money. And so recognize that you might win with that small claims, but if they don't have money, then they're not going to be able to pay you. And some people are just not paying. It's not because they're flakes, it's because they don't have that money to pay you. So don't take them to small claims if there's a chance that they're not going to pay you, because it might end up costing you more. And I know there are small claims fines that are cheaper than going through an attorney, but just weigh everything, guys. Look at it, all of the different incomes and outcomes, all of the different outcomes, potentials, and weigh whether or not your life is worth that disruption if you go into small claims, because it is a massive disruption. Okay, so the outcome that you want, that you're looking for, is faster payment and fewer conversations, plus higher quality clients who respect your business, and then a more predictable cash flow that leads to less stress for your business. So people don't pay late because they don't like you or the work that you do. They pay late or skip paying usually because they're procrastinating, or because the systems that you've got set up don't work for them, or the expectations weren't clear ahead of time. Or because the payment wasn't easy. So when you make payments clear and you make things easier to understand and make it so it's easy for them to pay, and that you enforce things and you let them know ahead of time how you're going to be enforcing things, then and have that be part of the contract. So it's not like, I treat all customers the same and I expect you not to pay, because that's going to lead them to, they might not pick you in that case. But just make it part of your contract and have the words be in there so that you don't need to give that to them verbally. So you're not like, hey, I'm totally expecting you not to pay, but make things clear in some way or another what you expect. And that will make it so that your business is more stable, more personal, more professional and personal and profitable. And that's pretty much it for this episode. Next week, I'm going to challenge the mindset that a client who doesn't pay is a bad client, and I want to actually challenge that, and I'm going to make the argument that a client that doesn't pay is actually on you and not on your client. And before you argue with me, check out next week's episode. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the like and the subscribe button, and if you're listening on podcast, make sure you're subscribed there too. And I will talk to you all later. Bye.